Thank you. Mr. Reid, thank you for the presentation. I was very, very interested in it. You talked about the EU financial instruments and their absorption into the UK in the past and what's happened with that. Looking at it going forward, as I understand from what you were saying, there's always a need for cohesion and structures in order for these funds to be absorbed. I'm particularly interested in the way that the government is pushing on in the UK with combined authorities. The West Midlands Combined Authority, or Greater Birmingham as it's known, and the Northern Powerhouse, so-called. Are these, in your view, authorities ideal or tailor-made to be able to take more absorption in this way? Will they assist with the financial instruments? And how much so do you believe that these projects actually really do go towards the goals that we're talking about in this committee? I'm interested in your take on that. Thank you.
In relation to the elements around sort of the cohesion and structures, I'm based in the northwest, so I work very closely with Greater Manchester, and the work that we're actually doing with them is to look at both urban development funds, building on their very successful Jessica, the Evergreen Fund, which really has demonstrated potentially there is a market need. I think it's taken a lot to start changing the culture, especially with developers, that actually you're moving away from grants to repayment finance, and that does take a lot to do. I think where I've seen, certainly with the large cities, that actually there is a driver to actually move away from that with the difficulties in accessing, public funding, and actually this element around actually how repayable instruments can work going forward. We have got some really good case studies around the type of investments that Greater Manchester have undertaken, and also I manage Liverpool as well, who've also operated a Chrysalis Jessica fund from that perspective. I think in relation to combined authorities, yes, I think the challenge at times, though, is providing funds of sufficient size and scale. And certainly where we've seen the benefit on the access to finance funds is actually where we've brought together a number of regions, and we're working very closely on 14 to 20, where we're bringing together local enterprise partnerships together to ensure that we can create funds of sufficient size and mass. I think that's clearly the benefits that we've seen within the 2007 to 13, is with the holding fund structure, you create funds of a critical mass and enables you to have sufficient size sub-funds that sit beneath that. Again, really fund size, an individual fund needs to be somewhere between 25 to 30 million pounds to really give you enough breadth of investment, and to also enable you to follow on investments into those businesses you've supported, which we've seen as critical. In relation to the Northern Powerhouse element, I think, yes, again, that's where there is a sort of that critical mass across the three northern regions. We've established three large funds anyway across the Northern England under 7 to 13, and there's clearly an appetite to continue with that. There is the market demand. We work very closely with the EIB in the EIF on our ex-ante assessments for the 14 to 20 programme, which really says, obviously, there is clearly a market gap, particularly in supporting early stage finance. The venture capital market for those early stage businesses is an area that we see is just, the market doesn't tend to address, and the need for these funds going forward. Do they achieve the goals? I think I could provide a list of sort of examples where we've been extremely successful in what we set out in relation to doing that, and I think the ex-ante assessments that we've undertaken has actually validated some of the discussions that were taken back in when we put these funds together back in 2007 and 2008. What I found interesting, though, is that actually the holding fund model did give us huge flexibility, where we actually been able to move funding between different funds. That's a flexibility we didn't have under previous programmes, and that has helped us ensure if fund managers weren't performing or the market had changed, that we've been able to reallocate funding effectively and very quickly to the funds that needed it.